Poverty and hunger affect countless people across the world, preventing them from supporting themselves and their families. Unable to afford education and often needing to work to survive, many higher-paying jobs are denied to them. Innovations are one way of tackling these problems and can range from wide-reaching policy solutions affecting entire nations and regions to simple changes that improve the lives of people and their families. To this end, we've invited experts to discuss innovative solutions to poverty, hunger, and livelihoods, empowering them to improve the lives of their families and communities. They are Saeid Zahedi, a former diplomat with extensive sustainable development experience, Dr. Suzie Husein, the founder and chair of the Soil Health Expert Framework, and Dr. Saji Varghese, associate professor at Christ University. After their presentations, they kindly took questions from the audience.
I must say that this presentation explored very interesting points and appreciate how they all explore different aspects of poverty, hunger, and innovation. To this end, I'd like to thank our guest speakers for sharing their valuable knowledge and experience with us. After all, even the smallest actions in our homes, workplaces, and communities make our world more thrivable. Step by step and drop by drop, everything we do can make a difference for our planet and our future. Now, I'd like to welcome everyone to the questions and answers section of our webinar, where you have the opportunity to ask questions to our speakers and they will answer them. Please post your question in the Zoom chat and I will ask them to our speakers. So let's move on to the questions. For this question, anyone can answer first. Can you briefly explain how innovation can help achieve goals such as no poverty and zero hunger?
Innovation in its root has a kind of dependency to good governance, that these two through each other can reinforce institutions that works for people to stop hungers and the poorness. So if we have a kind of institution that have fairness and honesty and the based on the transparency that the system will bring. So creativity in that society will increase and then the local voices can be heard. The local voices, usually they deal with the root of the problems. They can access to the main issues. So based on that, they can help the local communities and then the local governments, if it is municipalities, if it is something they could work directly on how to deal with the poor of the people. So if I want to add that the accountability of the responsibles in that sector will help the people to understand that how the problem in fact is, and based on that they could ask more responsive from the people. So because usually the lack of transparency and the difficulty based on considering not the decision making, I could say it's not inclusive, makes the problem increasing. So based on that, the poorness increase.
Okay, thank you, Lisa, for the question. Innovation is about the technology alone, right? So it's about redesigning how system work for those who fit us. Like for example, we take the goal one, which is that no poverty. For example, in sub-Saharan African, we can see that over 60% of the smallholders farm they has a degraded land, and the traditional fertilizers based aid increase yield but not the income, right? So because the cost chain stayed extractive. So now with the soil intelligence platform and regenerative credit, those same farmers are being paid for biological recovery. So for the Kenya's carbon in soil in situ, for example, so we convert the microbial data into verified carbon assets. so farmers can earn income by regenerating their lands. So poverty reduction can be done through the ecosystem restoration. And then we go to on the goal 2, for example, on the zero hunger that depends on the same logic. So in India, we can see that satellite-linked soil health card now guide on the nutrient management to 30 billions of farmers. And when this combined with the biological inputs, the nutrient efficiency will be rise by 25 to 40%. So that's mean the same land feeds more people with the fewer inputs. So globally, the European Green Deal, for example, and the African Great Green Wall both hinge on the innovation, but not the new machines, right? So, but they are focused more on the new measurements. So we are learning is to more on to measure the functions instead of fertilizers, all right? So this is what exactly where the shift framework fits in. So it's linked the biological, we have the chemical, we have the structural data that we translate into the national dashboard, for example. So the governments can see how soil recovery can directly impact on the food security, income, and also on the carbon resilience. So for me, the innovations is in the sense of the become the governance reform, but it doesn't just grow the crops, but it must be have the grow on the resilience and also on the sovereignty. Thank you.
As I said, I found Saeed's and Susie's insights very, very significant when it comes to wanting to end poverty and hunger. We need very strong governance, as you correctly mentioned, and even Susie's presentation was very insightful for me about land itself needs to be seen as a great infrastructure and not just as a commodity. Uh, and so those are very strong pillars which would be needed for any country to end poverty in their countries. Um, so from my context of I being a social entrepreneur, what becomes important for me in a country like India is to provide wealth creating opportunities in the rural areas. Uh, and that is a very good way in which we can actually try to support livelihoods in the rural areas. Because when I travel to the remotest villages in India, I was always brought up in the urban areas. I was never exposed to the harsh realities where even $2 to $3 is such a big thing for people many in many areas. So for me, what became very important was, can I build a very transparent social enterprise? So innovation is definitely there. I have a product now, but then these people are so vulnerable and so naive that they can be very easily be exploited. For instance, I can get these straws made by these women who would not even ask and would take any pittance because they are at the bottom of the pyramid, and they would be ready to accept any amount for a product which I'm giving, and I can then use all my branding strategies, marketing strategies, and overprice and sell it and pocket all the money. That's where exactly what uh, Mr. Saeed said. This whole corruption and lack of transparency is what is aggravating the whole issue of poverty in India. So what we essentially do is we build a very transparent social enterprise where each woman who makes these straws has a right to know where we sell the straws and at what price. It's a very transparent enterprise, and the profit has to be shared with these women. So that is exactly what we are trying to build, a very transparent social enterprise, so that the women get a very equitable share of the money that we will make as an enterprise. And I think that's one way in which it can be done in a country like India.
Thank you, everyone, for sharing your thoughts on that. It's inspiring to see how innovation, when rooted in a strong governance and inclusive design, can truly turn local creativity into global impact, moving us closer to a world with no poverty and zero hunger. I have a question for Dr. Susie. This question is from Pavitra. She said, great presentation. Based on your case studies, which component among the biological, chemical, and structural components do you think is the most crucial for maintaining soil sustainability and on a global scale?
Thank you for the question. I think this is a great and often misunderstood question because, in truth, there is all three components: biological, chemical, and structural interdependence. But we are talking about the sustainability at a global scale, right? So the biological component is the keystones. So, for example, we can see that biology is the engines that keeps that two alive, which mean that microbes will transform the inert minerals into nutrients, repair the structure through the organic binding, and even regulate the soil, water, and carbon's balance. So when the biology collapse, right, so chemistry become more toxic and the structure become brittle. But when biology recovers, all right, so the system heals itself. So naturally, will rebalancing on the chemistry and the structure. So there is a global data set from FAO, even the research from the Rostam State shows that the soil with the higher microbial biomass recover fertilities up to 3 times more faster than those that managed chemically. And this is why the she puts biological diagnostic first, because microbes are the governance of the unit of the soil. So in Malaysia, for example, right, we have seen in durian blocks that regain on the yield stability after 9 months of the microbial rehabilitations without the additional fertilizers. And for example, in Africa and Latin America, we have a similar biological recovery patterns, which have reduced the nutrient loss by over 30%. So while the structure and chemistry the matters, biology is a living currency of sustainability. So it's the invisible governance that turns the soil that from the dirt into the ecosystem. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I have a question for Said. Is there any way to switch from weak governance indicators to strong ones in developing countries?
Yes, developing countries can shift from weak to strong governance indicators, but of course, it requires a long-term and consistent and systematic reforms rather than short-term fixes, such as, for example, invest in training and digital systems. So the skilled and tech-enabled public servant can work faster, better, and have a more transparent services. And adding to that, decentralized decision making, again, it helped to empower the local government and it increased accountability and the responsiveness. And rule of law is so important, and how it can help for control of corruption in developing countries. It can enhance voices and enhance participation and accountability. So free media and civil society, all these can help. But one thing that I can again insist is about leadership commitment. In some countries, reform succeeds only if political leaders show a genuine integrity and a long-term vision. If they have long-term vision, they could help his people or the people in that country. So if I want to wrap up is a transitioning to a strong governance is like a marathon. It's like a frog leap. So it depends on institutions, incentives, and integrity, all evolving together. And the key is continued political commitment and citizen engagement that is so good that they can monitor the responsibles, and at the end, institutional learning that they will, through that learning, evolutionally, they can improve themselves.
Thank you so much. I have a question for Dr. Saji. How did you convince people to utilize a waste product to develop a new product?
After I developed the product in my at my university, we actually took road trips, and we took the help of the National Bank of Rural and Agriculture Development. So we have a National Bank of Rural and Agriculture Development in India, I got in touch with them, and with their support, we reached out to the first village, and we had an entire awareness program in in the small hamlet of around 600 families, and we introduced our product to them, saying that this is what we can make. And in fact, we even our first machines were simple mechanical devices. So we actually demonstrated before the people that this is how the whole thing gets made, and then we started recruiting people. So our criteria was to see the economic condition of the families. So we wanted to select people who were at the bottom of the pyramid. I mean, who had the least incomes for their families. And we recruited around 20 women in that first village, and we started our experiments there. Thankfully, it was very well received. So it was not very difficult. Of course, the only thing that they didn't have any doubts about the product, because anyway they didn't have to find the market because we were doing it for them. So they only had to make the product. So they didn't have to take up the burden of finding a market for the product and how to reach it out to the market and so on and so forth. The only thing was they do look at people from urban areas with a pinch of salt. They don't really trust us because probably they had very bad experiences in the past or whatever. So what I found out was that I had to be with them for almost a month and convince that we were really wanting to be very transparent in our entire transactions. So that was very important. Once that was done, then it was easy for us to replicate in other villages as well. I hope I answered your question. So it was first about being with them for some time and also taking a support of a government agency to reach that particular place. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Dr. Sayi. I have a question for Dr. Zuzi. A question from Charles, based in Papua New Guinea. Dr. Susie, I've been working with NPK, NP blend, cassiterite, and urea fertilizers in my field operations. Based on your expertise, which of these do you recommend for improving both crop yield and soil quality in tropical conditions like those in Kim? I really appreciate your insights.
Thank you, Charles, for the questions. That's a very practical questions then, and one that practical farmers wrestle with everywhere. So because the issue isn't the fertilizer itself, but what the soil can actually process. So for NPK, NP blends, Kisara, or even the urea, each serve a role, which means that, for example, NPK give the balanced start, NP blends target on the early root growth, Kisarite more supply the magnesium and sulfur, and urea push more on the vegetative mass, right? So, but in tropical soil like KMB, so that which is typically acidic, highly weathered, and also on the microbiologically fragile. So the problem isn't the nutrient itself, right? It's not because of the lack of nutrient, but it's lack of the retention and biological mediations. So what we learn across Malaysia, so of Papua New Guinea, also in Southeast Asia, is that urea and NPK deliver the yield spike, but accelerate the acidification and leaching if we use without the biological buffering or calcium silicate correction. So after 3 or 4 cycles, you can see on the compaction, poor rooting or falling efficiency, right? So in contrast, what we can integrate, for example, when we integrate on Kisrite with the biological or structural support, for instance, we adding on the biochar or microbial inoculants, so and the magnesium acts as a central ions for chlorophyll and cation exchange, improving on the both nutrient uptake and the aggregate stability. So my recommendation is not the product itself, but a sequence, which means that you use the mild NP or NPK starter only where the deficiency is verified. And then we pair it together with the Kisserai and biological amendments, for example, like compost tea, effective microbes, or molasses-based inoculants to maintain the magnesium or sulfur balance and microbial activity. And then the last one, we need to apply a structural conditioner, for example, like dolomite, the lime, or even the silica-based materials, which is that we need to keep pH between 5.8 to 6.5, which is that, and protect the microbial life, right? So in tropical system, biology and buffering matter is more than a bag, right? Because the fertilizer should be complement with the living soil, not replace it. Right, so this is exactly what the SHIFT framework operationalize, which is mean that we balancing on the biological, chemical, and structural layers. So every kilograms of input generate both yield and long-term soil intelligence. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Susie. I have a question for Said. In your opinion, what can developed nations learn from the success stories of institutional innovation in Brazil, Kenya, and Rwanda?
Right question. Usually, many people they think that it should be from developed countries that we should get the pattern. But innovation is not just technological; it's institutional. What I mean is, for example, if you remember, I talked about Porto Alegre, showed that how citizens can directly influence spending priorities and an institutional innovation that increased transparency and trust. So, citizen participation builds trust and accountability. That is a lesson from Kenya that what we got. Usually, developed countries often face bureaucratic perfection. They wanted everything to be perfect. Rwanda's approach reminds us that policy quickness, that it make it fast, not wait until it will be 100% guaranteed. And it is gradual learning can be more powerful than a perfect plan that we could usually see in the developed countries. So the public services and building accountability and bringing multiple government functions under one citizen-friendly roof that we could see in Kenya that we raised. So it could be a kind of another example that how it helps to see in developed countries. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Said. I have a question for Dr. Saji. Are you in the process of developing new innovations to eliminate poverty and hunger? If so, what are they?
Yeah, it's a nice question because at our Center for Design and Innovation for Social Entrepreneurship, we look at various product innovations as well as service innovations so that we can provide income opportunities both for the rural communities and for the urban poor. In fact, I was actually wanting to ask Dr. Susie also because so when I make these straws from coconut leaf, so we have a process by where we scrape the underside of the leaf and it comes out as nice powder, very fine powder. And I was trying some experiments at home using that powder of the coconut leaf scraping powder. It's very fine powder, and I kept it under some different plants, and I saw that there was a phenomenal increase in the vitality and growth of the plants. And that we would be getting in huge quantities now that we are increasing the production of our straws in huge quantities. So we have a entire vacuum section system by which we collect this powder. So I was just trying to understand if that can actually help in replenishing our soil. So that's one product that we are looking at. And what I found out that it has very high moisture absorption capacity. It absorbs water in very huge quantities. At the same time, the fiber of it has very high oil absorption capacity. So I just collaborated with a physics professor, and we just made very nice mats out of it, which is used to clean the kitchen platforms. The kitchen cleaning wipes. It is working very well, and we are going to launch that product. So I hope I'm answering your question as well. That we are trying to launch several allied products from these products waste material that we are getting. We are also trying to make dishwashing scrubbers from the fiber of the coconut leaf that we are getting. So there are a few products that we are working on. Also on the service innovation part, if you know, there's a lot of small businesses which keep happening on the streets of India. So we are trying to see how we can standardize the way of work. For instance, there are many wandering tea vendors. So they'll just be taking small tea flask and walking on the streets to sell the tea. So what our team of students, what we did is, so obviously what happens, they want to make faster money, so the quality of the tea is very substandard, the hygiene is suspect also, they don't have any brand visibility. So a team of students and I, we are actually trying to standardize their product, that the tea that they sell on the streets wandering around, and we have created a brand around it. And we are also providing these small tea making infrastructure for women from the lower economic strata in the cities. And we are trying to standardize the how those products can be sold. And 6 students from our computer science are creating an app for them, so that someone can order tea from a wandering tea vendor. So to answer your question, of course, there are a few products that we are trying to come up with. Also, we are trying to improve the businesses that are happening on the footpath by people from the lower strata of the society. So there are a lot of businesses which can have very strong interventions, which can actually uh, make their entire business easy, add to their incomes, and give them better dignity as well, and better confidence in the product that they are selling. So we at Christ University, we are working on both these areas, product innovations as well as service innovations. Yeah, I hope I answered your question. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Dr. Saji. This question is from Vivian Lyon. She is from Malaysia. She asked, well, is the question for the 3 speakers. May I know if they think food waste management, including food risky, can contribute to addressing hunger and poverty issues? If your answer is yes, can you share a successful story? And I have one more question for Dr. Susie, maybe in advance. May I know if you think composting food waste can contribute to improving soil health? And why do you think so? So we will start with the first question for all of us.
I can reply yes, completely yes, because food waste management, including food rescue, can greatly contribute to addressing hunger and poverty. In good governance, we ensure that these kind of initiatives are effective and transparent, and turning surplus of food into social impact rather than landfill waste. You know that. So this kind of food waste management helps directly feeding the hungry people, rescuing surplus of food from restaurants, supermarkets, and farms can provide immediate relief to vulnerable people. For example, food banks distribute this food to low-income families, shelters, and community kitchen, and it reduces environmental and economic cost and impact as well. So because we have less food waste, we have lower disposal costs, and we have reduced greenhouse gas emissions. And it helps poverty alleviation program and saves money for the government budget. And it supports social enterprises. Some organizations turn rescued food into affordable meals and packaged products. And if that question asks about a successful story, in the country that I am, in Australia, I can say there is a Oz Harvest that is founded in, I think, 2004, that rescues surplus food from restaurants, cafes, supermarkets, and across Australia. So the impact is huge. It delivers millions of meals to vulnerable people each year and educate business and communities about food waste reduction and it creates vulnerable and employment opportunities directly and indirectly. So it's another side of good governance, that such a transparent operations and clear reporting of food distribution and partnership with government and private sector ensures the effectiveness.
Again, from the context of our country, just to give an example, I am at a university where we have 23,000 students in a very small area. In the sense that there are several hostels where food waste is simply alarming. Because sometimes 20 to 30% of the students don't even have the food at the hostels, which anyway gets prepared. They would prefer to go out to other restaurants for their food, and huge amounts of food gets wasted. And that's one area we were actually trying to see whether we could make an intervention. Here, what the first challenge we were facing is the logistic challenge, because it's food, and let's say it's dinner time and around 9, and it's only by 10 or 11 that we know that this much of food is wasted. So unless we have strong food systems in place which ensures that the food quality is not compromised, it becomes very risky. In fact, there are some shelters which don't even take prepared food, because they fear that if it is for some in some way spoiled, because the checks are in that stringent here, it can lead to outbreaks of diseases, and then it can put them into a huge problem, a huge issue. So what I found is that in a country like India, of course it is very desirable, but then the practicality part of it is what is challenging, at least when we are trying to address it in our area. But of course, there are many good success stories, as Dr. Saeed just now shared with us. I also know, and in fact, we were trying to follow up with a company called Copia, that's California based. Uh, a student named Komal Ahmed has initiated it, and it is working very successfully in California. If you want to check out, you can check it's Copia, Copia. You can check that out. Of course, it would be very desirable. But then we do find quite a few logistic challenges.
Thank you, Vivian, for the question. I think this is an excellent and necessary questions. Why? Because yes, we can say that food waste management, especially when we have a truth organized food rescue, which is can directly reduce on the both hunger and poverty. But the key is we need to treat the food waste as resource management issues, which means that it's not merely a humanitarian one. Because we can see globally, we waste about 1.3 billion tons of food every year. Then we can say that enough to feed the 3 billion people, right? So yet nearly 800 millions that still go hungry, right? So bridging that gap, so is both a logistical and governance challenge. For example, a great example is from the Robin Hood Army, which is that one NGO that operating in across the Asia and Africa. What they did was they partner with the restaurant also and hotels to rescue the unsold cooked food. So they will safely repack and redistribute to the low-income communities the same night. And their model is not a charity. It's about the logistic. It's about the dignity. So this is more also scalable, which is that they serve over on 100 millions of the meals without storing the foods. So this just by using the coordination and human network. So this is another one example that we can see, for example, on the Food Aid on Foundation Malaysia, that works on the also on the hotels, hypermarkets, and restaurants, that they divert the surplus meals from the waste stream to families that in need. So this is that proving that we need to rewire the system. It's just not the intentions. Both hunger and poverty are reduced. And so, yes, we can say that food waste management is one of the most underutilized levers for social justice, right? And to follow up on your question, Vivian, so whether the composting food waste can improve the soil health, the answer is an emphatic yes, but it requires a scientific disciplines, because we need to understand that composting that transforms the organic waste into biological active carbon. And this is the base currency of the soil life. All right, for example, in our Malaysian tropical regions, right, where the soil are highly weathered and low organic matters, that biological carbon act as a living stabilizers. So it will rebuild the microbial networks and also bind the soil particle and improve the porosities. And the last one, the important one, is restore the nutrient efficiency. All right, so this is show that by adding the compost, it will increase the soil organic carbon. It can be, for example, 0.3 or 0.6 tons per hectare annually. So while reducing the fertilizers dependency up to 25%. But we need to understand by composting only become transformative when they integrated into a system soil governance framework, which is that something that we do, for example, through the SHE framework, we measure the compost quality. It's about the CN ratio, microbiome viability, and humic stability, right? So this is to ensure that it will enhance on the soil biology and structure, right? So in short, as on your I can conclude that the composting can close two loops. All right. First, we need it fits the soil and it fits the society. When the waste return into the earth intelligently, which means that we quantify it, so the hunger and degradation both will decline. Right. So I think this is very important, especially when we're talking about composting and also the waste management. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Susie. I have a question for Saeed. This question is from Sharia. How can we balance technological innovation with traditional knowledge in tackling hunger and poverty?
It's an important question based on, in fact, because good governance creates conditions where innovation works for everyone. And when the local peoples and their knowledge is so important based on their in fact history, that how they preserve the environment and how they could use the resources in their land. So in fact what I could say is that the local, in fact, communities aligned with the new knowledge, they can reinforce the cooperation for getting respecting the resources available in that area with the new technology that it needs, not just to eradicate the tradition technologies, but also help them to improve their production based on sustainability and keeping the resources safe and productive. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I have a question for Dr. Saji. How did you overcome stigmas in the community to encourage social innovation?
So the first center that we started, it was in a community where the heads and members of the family didn't want the women to go out to far off places of work. In fact, that's a place where none of the women whom we employed ever had any incomes at all. And then when we inquired, we found out that they didn't want the women to go off to far off places, because any work that was available apart from um, the agriculture work, which is again not consistent, they would have to take commute to distant places or in buses or whatever, and then come back very late in the evening. And the male members particularly were not comfortable with the women traveling far off distances. Uh, so the so uh, this entire opportunity that we created for them very close to their homes. In fact, in initial days, the male members would also come and see how the whole thing is getting, how we are treating the employees and all of that. And then it went to the extent that they all became a part of the entire community of our work. When we would visit them once in a month and spend an entire day with them, So that trust was formed, but initially, of course, as you correctly said, there was a bit of a hesitancy. And again, as you mentioned, India being very multi-caste and multi-religious, those factors do come into the picture once in a while. But we try to ensure that everyone is given equal opportunity, treated fairly and equally, and that is slowly building that trust that is very much required in very sensitive communities that we multicultural and multicast people, they all stay together. So we have to be sensitive about it. But at the same time, as I said, that our team of students and I, we are very always, very, very sensitive and conscious about how we are treating the women who work with us. And now the trust is built. But correct, yeah, you are right in asking. Yeah, there was a stigma, and then challenges of trust in the initial days. But we could overcome it through demonstrating that yes, we were very transparent, and we would be creating very respectful working environments for the women who come and work with us. In fact, the age group of women who come to work with us ranges from 20s up to 56. In fact, the oldest woman who works with us is aged 56. Yeah, so we had to build that trust.
Thank you so much, Dr. Saji. I have a question for Dr. Suzie. Can you please advise how ordinary end users of agricultural products, such as households and small businesses, can contribute to soil functionality?
Okay, Lisa, thank you for the question. Right, so we are talking about the soil functionality, which means that we are referring on that how the functionality is not only the farmer's responsibility, because it's everyone's inheritance, right? Because for the ordinary users, whether household or small food businesses, they can restore the soil function in three practical ways. First, the truth waste stewardship, which means that we can separate organic waste and composting it instead of sending it to the landfill or dumping at the landfills, right? And then food waste compost become microbial food, and it retains the biology into the soil instead of methane releasing to the atmosphere. Even a small kitchen composter can regenerate the equivalent of 10 square feet, 10 square meters of topsoil in a year. And then the second is on the purchasing from producers who practice regenerative or soil verified health farming, which is that every ringgit or dollars that we spend on the soil intelligence produce a signal demand for governance-based agriculture, which is that consumer will shape the policy faster than ministry. And then the third one for small businesses like cafe, restaurant, or caterers, right? So the partnership with the food rescue NGOs like that, just like I mentioned just now, on the Food Aid Foundation Malaysia or the Lost Food Project, this keep the edible surplus in the human loop. And the inedible fraction can be directed to the composting hubs or biodigesters. So that circular flow keeps the nutrient cycling instead of being wasted, right? So the soil functionality begins with the how society treats the organic matters. So when we stop calling it a waste, so and then we calling it as a feedstock for life, for example, right? So even the household become part of the governance system. And yes, you don't need a farm to restore the soil. You just need to stop letting this life end in the bin. All right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Suzie. Thank you. Well, we are running short of time and we are unable to ask any further questions, but I will request our speakers to answer the remaining questions offline. They will be sent to you soon. And please, Dr. Saeed, if you can respond to Mohammed by intern, please, I really appreciate that. And for our viewers, please sign up to our newsletter to get access to these Q&As and the latest updates. Also, please register for upcoming Thrive Framework Workshop on Tuesday, November 18, 2025. Registration link in the chat. Thank you, everyone.